Arrowhead and Zurich have teamed up to offer multi-line package coverages at competitive prices. We're bringing new life to ambulance insurance. Learn more at arrowheadgrp.com/ambulance.
In this interview, Julie Rochman, CEO and President of the South Carolina-based Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, discusses sharing of mitigation and recovery lessons among U.S. and global experts with Insurance Journal's Andy Simpson.
Although the IBHS is a U.S.-based organization, one of the things that we're very happy about is that our membership includes international carriers, primary carriers, as well as reinsurers. In fact, our chairman right now, Carl Heddy, is with Munich Re, the largest reinsurer in the world. And we wanted Carl in the chair specifically to kind of send a message that we as an organization want to export our learnings to people all over the world, to communities all over the world. And we also realize we don't have a corner on perfect information here, that we want to import knowledge from other places, whether it's the Dutch in terms of flood loss prevention, Caribbean countries where evacuation in anticipation of a hurricane is really not an option because they're living on islands, and the way that they build their own homes and infrastructure and businesses. Australia, we spend a lot of time talking to Australians about wildfire. There's a global earthquake model being compiled. There are windstorms and flooding on the continent in Europe are always issues. Earthquakes, obviously, we saw in Chile and in Japan, different models in Haiti where building codes make a big difference versus a lack of codes. Again, going back to Japan, looking at the tsunami and the way that certain preparations did or didn't work. It's frustrating at times because some people in the United States don't want to hear what other countries are doing, but it's important, I think, for us to be an advocate on behalf of property owners everywhere. If there's something that a laboratory or an organization or a government agency is doing in another country that can help inform our work here, I think we have an obligation and responsibility to use that information, put it to good use. Where we have a finding of a new way to harden homes to make them stronger and safer, or to keep businesses in business in the face of disaster, again, I think we have a responsibility and obligation to export that knowledge. There's a lot of good work being done around the globe. I would say that the earthquake community has really done a better job of bringing all that information and data together in a unified way than probably other hazards will. Of all of them, clearly high wind and hail is lagging the greatest, and I'd say behind that is, or just ahead of that, but also not very good, is wildfire. There's a lot of wildfire around the world, and there's a lot of conversations, but the modeling around wildfire, the conversations about loss mitigation are really just starting to come together. Much more robust are hurricane and earthquake. I think those are probably the two risks where the conversations are farthest along. Mother Nature doesn't have a map, and she doesn't have a calendar, and she doesn't have a clock. Every day, the odds of something happening reset to zero. Some disasters have seasons, and so you can say, well, every season the odds reset. But if you were to put together a clip reel of interviews from people and communities around the world, one of the most common things you would hear people say is, I never thought it would happen here. One of the other most common things you would hear people say is, well, I survived fill-in-the-blank disaster from several years ago. That's why I stayed and never thought current disaster fill-in-the-blank was going to impact my property so completely. We call it disaster amnesia. Clearly there's a large desire on people's part not to believe that the worst can happen to them. We, like a lot of other agencies that work in disaster preparedness, believe that you have to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And we do that, and we try to be very forceful advocates on behalf of people, businesses, and communities, on behalf of the insurance industry, to say, it's great that you hope that things won't happen, but just in case, let's talk about what you should do to make sure that you don't lose your business, you don't lose your home, you don't lose your community, and your life can go on after the disaster as it was before. Our lab in South Carolina is unique. And in the whole world, there's nothing else like this facility that allows us to test full-scale structures, residential and commercial structures, 2,000 square foot buildings. And so there's a lot of interest from other countries in what we're doing, which is great because it provokes conversations. And it allows us to import and export knowledge in ways that we wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do. So, for example, this year alone, or in the last 12 months, we've seen camera crews and reporters at our facility in South Carolina from Germany, from Japan, from Australia, from Canada, And it's really heartening to see that exchange of information taking place. We have researchers from other countries as well. We have a Canadian researcher, a Chinese researcher, and we hope that over time we'll also be able to partner with other labs that don't quite have the same capabilities we do. But as we do things in our large test chamber, the ideal would be to scale down the types of tests that we're doing so that other laboratories around the world could replicate parts of those or advance parts of those research projects, and that will advance building science much more quickly. So we look forward to developing and strengthening partnerships with other different types of research organizations around the world. We're starting down that path now. We've had some Japanese researchers, some Korean researchers, Canadian researchers, Australian researchers coming and talking to us about things that we can do. I know there's a lot of interest in Caribbean countries on hurricane risk. So those are partnerships that we're going to explore in coming years.